Alright, we are recording. That was me looking at the folder. Chapter 8, right? Yes, 8 of Phantom Menace and the whole book. Yeah, I got some notes. Quite a few. Alright, so where we start here. Some of them I know I'm gonna piece together, gonna come together. First thing, so, okay, this covers them actually trying to run the blockade, and then them arriving at Tatooine. And, actually stepping off and leaving the ship, right? We also have some interaction between the Viceroy and Sidious, and this is also when Maul is teased. I don't want to say introduced, he's teased here. Because, you see him there, they kind of describe him, but you don't really know much about him aside from him being the Sith apprentice. Anyway. So, while they're trying to escape, Qui-Gon tells the pilot to start spinning the ship because the Trade Federation weapons use pulsar tracking. So if you do that, it'll help you avoid them. It's like, help confuse them. It's like, why does he know this? I mean, did he really do that much background? I mean, it's like, for this mission, he has achieved sufficient background on the Trade Federation and the larger situation that he can question why they are going to such drastic measures to try to stop the tax. It's like him trying to figure that out is actually a point. It's like him trying to explain it. There's a point made of that. It's like, why does he care? Why would this be at all of interest to him? Okay, because it wasn't presented as well, I've been put on this mission, so I did some study. I find this curious. It's no. Why is this a thing? And then he also knows the flora and fauna of the planet that he had no reason to believe he would set foot on. And now it's also he knows the technical readouts, well, at least some of the technical specifications of weapons that the Trade Federation use. This is supposed to be him going there and just pressuring them to do something. Yeah. I'm sorry. I get the whole, you need characters that know things. I get that. But at the same time, they need to have a reason to know it. And if there isn't a reason, it's a problem. And I'm calling that out here. That's exactly what's going on here. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, so I wrote this note, and it comes up again later. They got by the blockade and aren't followed? Because, they're going by when the large ships. And it's like they stayed close to it so the blasters on the ship can't hit it. That makes sense. So they send out fighters. Shield goes down. R2... You know what? Actually, no, this doesn't make any sense. I'll explain. R2 goes out, repairs the shields up so they're now protected from the fighter. And then it's like, oh, okay, we got away. They weren't followed? I can maybe understand the fighters not being able to keep up with the ship. Although if that were the case, then how did they come behind them? I mean, was it that the fighters came out and approached them that way? I mean, it's like maybe, but still is. You don't do a blockade with only battleships. Okay, I'm like, you would also have cruisers, frigates, destroyers. Which one thing, I wish I could remember where it was. An actual function of real destroyers, at least supposedly, I might not be remembering this, or what I am remembering is wrong. They will actually pilot in between a battleship and a ship that, say, fired a torpedo. So the destroyer takes the hit instead of the battleship, because in some circumstances, the battleship is more valuable. It's going to be harder to build, to replace, for one thing, but it's the thing with the big-ass guns. The destroyer is meant for great speed and maneuverability. It has smaller guns, and it's, I think it was actually a cruiser, which is larger than a destroyer. So I'm just remembering one piece of trivia or a comment I saw concerning Godzilla -1. I know, one hell of a tangent here. About the Japanese Imperial Navy was not good. By that I mean that they did mean things. Like they would, after sinking an American ship, or I'm just trying to think, how many, I know we were the largest force there. I'm not sure how present the Australians would have been, but they may have also had their navy out. But anyhow, after sinking a ship, if they were survivors, the Japanese Navy would actually shoot and kill them in the water, which that is like contrary to the Geneva Convention and such. I don't recall if they were signatories, but anyway. But there was one battle, I don't remember what it was, but it's actually, like, the movie actually kind of references it, that there was a single cruiser that actually managed to hold off a fleet, that it was able to move around so efficiently and continuously deal out damage in such a way that it confounded the fleet, and so the Japanese fleet allowing the American fleet that was trying to flee to get away. And part of the reason why this person had left this comment or piece of trivia was that in Godzilla -1, them saluting is actually potentially a reference to that, because when the Japanese fleet had finally destroyed the cruiser, they actually did salute the sailors there, because they had such respect for them for what they achieved there. But anyway, it still is. You would have multiple size ships here, so you would be following it. But it's like, once the shields are up, they keep going. Apparently they don't now need to worry about, as they're going away from the battleship, that it's going to be able to blast them again. We're not worrying about that. We're just, okay, where do we go now? Later on, though, this is like a couple away. The Viceroy actually does tell Sidious, well, we did try to follow them. It's like, no, you didn't. Or if you did, no one on the ship knew, because they didn't have to react to it. So now it says that this is part of their reporting, the Viceroy's report to Sidious, that they have control of the cities in the northern and western parts of Naboo territory. There's a couple problems here. One is kind of for me, one is for what they're actually saying. Because I made the point previously about how, what are they invading? Because it's like, why did they have an invasion force in the marsh area where the Gungans are, when there's no clear evidence that they are where the Gungans exist? And this would seemingly be far away from Theed. And I pointed out in the previous chapter, when the governor refers to, you've invaded our cities, that could have been exaggeration, could have been a generalization. It doesn't have to mean that they actually did invade multiple cities. But then when we get to the treaty, only Theed is mentioned. So it's like, okay, that does seem to suggest only Theed, the capital, was conquered, was besieged and taken. Now we got a reference to multiple cities. Although, to be fair, maybe this could have happened later, that they first took Theed and then spread out, but it still is... I'm still just very unclear why we had that invading force at the marsh. I mean, there was no clear reason to believe that position was strategic for them to use. It just let the Jedi come down near the Gungans, which would then be okay, you're serving a plot point you want to hit, you're not serving the story, and that bothers me. But the other thing is they do refer to it as Naboo territory. As I just said, there's no reason to believe they have any knowledge of the Gungans. None at all. Because even the Gungans are like, we've never encountered them before. Why should we care? And they're under the water. They don't care. Let whatever happens to the Naboo happen. They are totally disinterested and potentially unknown. Potentially unknown to the Trade Federation. So why are you referring to it as the Naboo territory? You'd just be western parts of Naboo, as in the world, or of this specific continent. It's like so many ways you could describe that. Kind of like how with the treaty, instead of saying our invasion of Theed, it would be invasion of your world, would be far better. Legitimately, some of this, it feels like it's two different authors, and it's just going back and forth with who writes what, and no one bothered to make sure that everything was coherent and consistent. At least not to the level I'm criticizing. Because to be fair, it might be somebody did look through it and was like, who thinks this way? Why would anyone be this technical with it? It's like, because I exist is why somebody would be so technical. I don't know. Okay. So Maul is finally teased, and he is described as being intimidating. He's standing there with the... It actually doesn't even just describe the tattoos, but that they're etched into his skin. So that could be more like scarification than just tattoo. Which, full face and dyed scarification? Yeah, that would be more intimidating than just tattoos. bald head and crown of thorns, which is, horns, which is interesting because that kind of suggests they're not necessarily natural, as you do see in the movie. It could actually be that he's wearing a crown of horns. At least it is described as a crown of horns. Let me see if I can find the actual quote. Shouldn't be far from. Okay. Okay. And his skull was hairless and studded with a crown of short hooked horns. So yeah, okay. This studding would imply that it is attached because studs go into things. So okay. But still, that is an intimidating description. But he's only teased. He's not really introduced here because we got the name, but we don't know anything about. Aside from he is Sidion's apprentice, but still, it's because he's intimidating. And they actually describe that basically the Neimoidians, who, remember, they're cowards, were able to put on some kind of face with Sidious, who, to be fair, they are more familiar with. But Darth Maul, looking at them, it falls away for them. That they are just terrified of him. But again, they're cowards. We still don't really have any reason to believe that Maul is all that impressive. So we also don't have any reason to believe that Sidious is all that impressive. But we do have he is described as being intimidating, and so in a way that may transcend, may go beyond the Neimoidians, but it still is we still don't have a sense of what the actual threat level is here. Yeah, and this is also my point being, this helps Sidious, but at the same time, this is chapter 8. He's introduced in chapter 3. It took us this long to get to a point where his threat level is going up to where it should be. So now some more technical problems concerning this. So Sidious is going to send Maul to track the ship, right? Okay. Let's stop and consider the situation. We have a ship that very likely has 2 Jedi on board. Definitely has the Queen and her party trying to escape Naboo. Okay. Where is she going? There's only one place she will ultimately go to, that is Coruscant. Where Palpatine must be. He's an ambassador. He is doing things there. They would notice him missing. Unless you're going to say, oh, well, he just, hyperspaces out to here and then back every day. That he's commuting to his evil lair and back. It's like, this is also supposed to be an emergency situation. No, he is on Coruscant. Maul's on Coruscant. They can 100% expect the Queen to come to Coruscant. They do not know where the Queen is now. So what should Maul do? Wait. I'm seriously, there is no reason to move at all. And especially when you consider, Naboo is described as an outer rim world. It is far away from Coruscant. So is Tatooine. They have no reason to believe that the ship has a damaged hyperdrive, which means you can most expect them to come directly to Coruscant. So you don't need to do any tracking, you just need to wait until they arrive. And guess what? Once they're there, they're probably going to be like, hey, we're within Republic space now, not the Trade Federation. We can start broadcasting, hey, here we are, can we have a meeting? It's like, no problem with that. You'll know exactly when they get there. You won't be able to do much to them, but you'll know when they get there. So the only way that if you want to try to intercept them before getting to Coruscant, you have to assume some sort of damage to the ship, right? Okay. What kind of damage? That's right, we got no idea. There was no answer there. So, it's one of those, there's no real way for Maul to figure out where they could possibly be. Because if it is the hyperdrive is partially damaged, well, now they could be in only half of the galaxy instead of the entire galaxy that they could be in. Maybe they don't have a hyperdrive, in which case, in reality, it would be they're still in the Naboo system. In Star Wars, that means that they can still travel to different systems that are supposed to be light years away, even though they have no ability to travel faster than the speed of light. Anyhow, it's just one of those. There are only 2 options for Maul. To stay at Coruscant knowing that they will come. And technically this is Sidious that would most likely make the decision. Or at least be aware of it and provide his input. The other is to assume the ship is damaged, which requires such variability. So many variables involved there. That's like, where there is nowhere to start except traveling to Naboo to see if I can pick up any signs of something. Or getting the tracking information from the Nemoidians, which, if they had it, would have already given it, would have at least been mentioned, so that can't exist. So it'd have to be to go to Naboo to try to track somehow, pick them up, and then go to Tatooine. But it's like, okay, the time it takes to do that might also be enough time for them to repair their ship, effect repairs, and then get to Coruscant, so you've missed them anyway. It's one of those where the most rational choice would actually be for him to stay at Coruscant, maybe be on a ship and move away from Coruscant, so that the moment they appear, he can try to attack them, if the goal is to attack and destroy the ship. Or, even more sensibly, Sidious to say, Maul, you're going to wait here and stand ready, because we got 2 Jedi we're going to have to deal with. That's your thing. I am Senator Palpatine. I can handle the Queen. We're just going to let them come. We don't need to bother them. We don't need to reveal ourselves until they get here. I just need to prepare. That's it. Nothing. The whole idea of Maul going out and encountering them at Tatooine, as we know happens based on the movie, it's a waste of time and resources. It really makes no sense. So, yeah. I'm sorry, but you should be critical of stories like in this way, even, especially if you're going to try writing any. Because it's like, if the characters start acting irrationally, well, the characters should be acting rationally for their own purposes. Now, to an outside observer, that might be irrational. That's fine. So you can do that. But you still need the irrationality explained somehow. And it's not there. This is feeling a lot like Empire Strikes Back, where it's a fragile, flimsy thread that's just trying to get from point A to point B to point C to point D that was written on a whiteboard, instead of the points that the story wants to follow. So, yeah. Okay, so this is one thing that's interesting. Well, here, let me skip it for the moment, because there's 2 points that kind of go together. Padme, we finally get Jar Jar interacting with Padme, who is the actual Queen of Naboo, but is currently dressed as a handmaiden to be disguised. And when meeting Jar Jar, she's kind and respectful to him. So, I do suspect, and I'm trying to remember if she actually does say, you're a Gungan, right? I think she might. I just don't quite remember. And I do just want to check this. Yes, you're a Gungan, aren't you? That is in there. So my speculation before that the prejudice that Obi-Wan has, we may see him overcome that as the story progresses. So he's serving as the surrogate for the Naboo overcoming their prejudice of the Gungans, and potentially the Gungans overcoming their prejudice of the Naboo. But certainly the Naboo towards the Gungans, Obi-Wan is a surrogate for that instead of Padme. Because Padme, they've decided, no, she needs to be this truly great and amazing queen. Great and amazing leader, which is fine. Although I did also make the point in the previous thing that her having a moment of weakness would be good. It would work for the character, would be appropriate, and would help keep her human instead of just being this great, stoic, capable figure. Which I also point out in A New Hope, at least the novel, that's exactly what Leia is, because she's not actually important enough character for true development. That's not an insult. But that is the case. Like, in some stories, that's just the case, when not every character does have character development. So it's like, there's one movie, it is a musical, but I love it. I think it's a great movie. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And by the way, for anyone being like, oh, I've heard of that, the movie is the original. They did eventually make a musical play out of it that's based on the movie. So it's not the other way around. But anyway, one criticism of that I have is, I can't remember her name. I want to say like Maggie, but I'm not sure if that's right, so I don't want to say that. But Adam's wife, actually in the movie, has zero character development if you pay attention. She never changes. Um, I'm sure she does go from the woman that you meet for a few minutes to wife to mother during the course of the movie, but her character development is nothing. She never changes, which is a shame. Which is a shame because there are reasons for her to change there. That just as Adam has a poor sense of what men should be, she also has and he also has a poor sense of what the roles for a woman are as well. She also has a poor sense of what her role is, and also what his role is, what the man's role is as well. So it's like her not developing is actually a problem. His developing makes perfect sense though in the story. It is a good movie. It is a good movie. And for anyone, just in case they're like, kind of Mary Sue kind of stuff, and no, that's not what's going on there. It's more just they neglected to give her character development. Yeah. So anyway, just my repeating the point that I hope she does have a moment of humanity here instead, of being human, rather than just always being the most capable. Because, as I point out, her options for what she can focus on to do to solve the problem are dwindling fast. And she should have some kind of emotional reaction to that, because that's not easy. And by the way, for anyone thinking, oh, you're saying that because she's good. No, men would also feel that pressure and would react. The reaction would be different than a woman, but it still is. There would be something. Somehow that would be expressed. It might be more in private, more alone. It's like alone, and you're just following in the book when this happens for them. I mean, whatever. It still is because of that dwindling. And it's like, I am failing. It's like the single thing left to me is so remote. I have to attach myself to this, but it is insane to believe that it could happen. It is human to have a reaction there. I hope we get it. I kind of expect we won't. But anyway, the last 2 points. So we do have, let me actually find it. I don't think it'll be hard to find. Actually, I'm probably a little wrong there. Yeah, it's earlier than that. Okay, no, it is here. So Queen Amidala leaned forward. This is R2 has been presented to them. Queen Amidala leaned forward, and a slender white hand came out to touch the droid's domed casing. Thank you, R2-D2. You have proven both loyal and brave. She glanced over her shoulder. Padme. One of her handmaidens came forward, Qui-Gon listening to the exchange with half an ear as he considered the problems that lay ahead on Tatooine. Noticed it was the young woman who had supported the Queen's decision to escape from Naboo. He frowned, except it hadn't been exactly like that. See to the cleaning up of the little droid. The Queen was speaking to the girl. R2-D2 deserves our gratitude. It is actually kind of funny here that the handmaiden who is pretending to be the Queen here is kind of like, I can boss you around. You're going to have to clean this thing up. It is kind of funny. And in theory, they are all friends. And I think there is at one point a reference, it is stated at one point in the movie at least, that they are friends. So it is like playful teasing there. So it's not like it's not like there's vengeance or anything. They're not like being mean, but just kind of playing. But it's kind of funny how it's there suggesting that he suspects already that Padme is in fact the Queen and is just in disguise. But so yes, it is clear. But then Qui-Gon is very pragmatic about the leaving to go to Mos Espa, and I do want to explain more about that. So this is Panaka. Don't make me go back and tell her, the Queen, you refuse to bring Padme with you. Qui-Gon hesitated, preparing to do exactly that. Then he looked at Padme again, saw strength in her eyes, and changed his mind. She might be useful. Traveling with a girl, they might suggest a family in transit and present a less aggressive look. He nodded. I don't have time to argue, Captain. I still think this is a bad idea, but she may come. He gave Padme a look of warning. Stay close to me. It's just odd how it kind of... maybe it is just going a little too far with making sure you're not telling the reader that, yes, this is the actual Queen. But they still could have had something, like even just Qui-Gon having a thought to himself that, being a little suspicious of this because of the whole Panaka, when running up with Padme. Her Highness commands you to take her handmaiden with you. She wishes for Padme to give her own report of what you might, and then no more commands from Her Highness today, Captain. And it's like you could have had something in there just mentioning that he is a little suspicious of that. Why would the Queen need to know what happens? Just something like that. Or yeah, really just need to know what happens would be best, because you can't say needs to witness, that exposes it's the Queen, or needs a witness, because then it's, well, he doesn't suspect. So it'd be why does she need to know? You could do something like that, maintain that little consistency there, that he does suspect, where it's like it's just a hint there. Whereas this, it seems more like, no, this is just some random handmaiden again. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. But yes, so I do want to talk briefly about how pragmatic Qui-Gon is here. And it makes sense. It makes sense. I'm good with it. The idea that at first he was just going to go on his own, but then it occurs to him, if I'm there alone, they might be suspicious. Jar Jar, you're coming with me. And bring the droid, too. It's like, so now that it's a group of them, so it's more likely, because you're unlikely to have one off-world traveler coming alone. Maybe. I mean, he also dresses as a farmer, so there's plenty of locals that do go around alone. Remember earlier, the Republic pilot, the retired Republic pilot, he was, in fact, in Republic pilot uniform, like he was recognizable as that, he was alone. So it's like, this doesn't really quite seem to follow, but he's trying to be pragmatic like that. It also is like, yeah, I'll bring Jar Jar the Gungan, an amphibious species, with me on Tatooine, where there's very little water. Because that makes perfect sense. He's not going to stand out. And by the way, I'm aware I'm being a little stupid because I'm pointing out here and the camera isn't picking it up. So. But then, as I think I read there, having Padme with him, then it's like, okay, they might think we're like a family, and so even less of a threat. It's like, how are you a threat? I understand the pragmatism. I do. That having a group, it does look a little bit more natural. And plus, you can do things like, if you are suspicious of your surroundings, if you start a conversation within the group, where basically you start just, it's almost like creating a bubble around you then that can force other people not to want to invade it. And it also allows a certain amount of chaos that you can then control. There are other reasons for that. Well, if he is alone, somebody could just come up to him and do whatever. But even just having Jar Jar there, if he starts talking with Jar Jar, now there's two people there, so you have to deal with two people and things like that. But no, it is also because, like, if he starts being suspicious, because remember, he's going to be armed. He will have his lightsaber on him. And if he's suspicious of something, he can start talking with Padme, he can start talking with Jar Jar about something. If the suspicion continues, like they are being followed and somebody starts approaching, the person approaching would think, oh, he's distracted with them. I can come up. He's the threat. I can come up around and, hit him with a blaster, stab him with a knife, something like that. But before he can, Qui-Gon can then spin around, not realizing, the threat, not realizing, oh, Qui-Gon is aware of me. Cut the guy in half, and then, they can move on, or whatever his reaction is. So it does make sense. But I feel like this idea that, oh, well, if we're a family, we're less threatening. It's like, dude, it's a wretched hive of scum and villainy, or at least something. I mean, the plan is controlled by the Hutts. You're not expecting this to be that safe. Yes. Being less of a threat doesn't help you. Being more of a threat might, because it may keep people away from you. I mean, it may draw more attention, but I mean, I don't like the thinking that will be less noticeable. The thinking that a family is good as far as it gives us a better reason to be here, to blend in. The whole classic thing of, where do you want to hide a letter that no one will find? In with the mail. because it's expected to be there. People aren't necessarily going to look for it there. Well, if they know it is a letter. That's some Sherlock Holmes story, isn't it? With some lost paperwork was trying to be found, and the dude just stuck it in like a tattered old envelope and had it like on his desk with the other mail that he hadn't gotten to yet. And no one would think to look there because it's supposed to be there. So it's like you do something like that, so it makes sense that he and his group are supposed to be there, and then you're all fine. But it does also, it's like he's dressed as a farmer and is going to try to get a hyperdrive. Why does a farmer need a hyperdrive? Anyway, I mean, sort of. I think I've mentioned I have the novelizations for the 6 original cast Star Trek movies, and I do want to go through those, and I'll do them on this. I think we'll see. It'll be a while before I get them. Hopefully, I'll still be doing this stuff. But it's like, what does God need with a starship? Star Trek 5 is not that good a movie. There are ways to justify it. The novelization will be interesting, but that's still such a good line. It really is. And it's, kind of like that was a farmer need with a hyperdrive. So it demands suspicion. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Anyhow, that is enough of that. We'll see you for chapter 9, where presumably we will finally have them meeting Anakin. And yeah, that'll be interesting. All right. See you then.